All right, hey now, it's the Rob from 1061.
Rob, wait.
What?
This is post to post. We got to do something big, something out there.
What were you thinking?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Town Square Media and 1061 KISS FM proudly bring to you your podcast champions of the world. He's the R to the O to the B. I'm STEVE. We are your hosts with the most, bringing you everything wrestling related from post to post.
Now it's the Rob from 1061 KISS FM here with my tag team partner in podcasting.
Hey guys, it's me, Steve, web contributor to 1061 evansville.com.
So it's certainly been a slow news week for wrestling, if not really a slow 2 weeks. Really, since Survivor Series, not a whole lot has happened worth talking about. We covered the on-air stuff yesterday. Not a whole lot of off-air things happening. So I loved when this stuff happens, actually, because it gives us an opportunity to bring out a topic. Steve came up with a cool game. I believe we're calling it Mistakes, Mishandled, or Misunderstood.
Yes.
So,
just with the recent events, the loss of Seth Rollins and how they treated the tournament, I know neither one of us were just excited about how that turned out. So I came up with, I got a list of 12 different things over wrestling history, and I just wanted to see what your take of is how WWE handled it and your thoughts.
Okay, I haven't heard this list yet, so I'm excited to see what you've come up with, and then we'll discuss. So here is the beginning of our new game, Mistakes, Mishandled, or Misunderstood.
All right. Number one, and these are in no order other than how my mind thought of them. The first one is the original Nexus storyline.
I thought the original Nexus storyline started off really, really strong, and I wouldn't even call that a mistake, because even though it kind of fizzled at the end and left a lot of people without a position on the roster, it made some legit stars out of the deal. Bad News Barrett. Heath Slater's still around. Justin Gabriel left as a star, although he's not there anymore. There's probably, there's Daniel Bryan, who was part of it for a second. I wouldn't even call that a mistake, personally. So, if anything, I guess I'd have to give that misunderstood. I don't consider that a mistake.
Yeah, I know a lot of my friends felt like the loss at SummerSlam really did detriment to them, and I actually agree with the loss at SummerSlam. I felt where they made the mistake is afterwards. I thought it should have made Nexus a little more vicious and a little stronger and had that storyline last longer.
Well, I would agree with what you said. However, I wouldn't call it a total fumble because they did make some stars out of the deal.
Yeah.
That was a good piece of business in my opinion. I look back on, I want to say that was 2010 or maybe 2011, but that was a really cool angle, especially when they came on strong on Cena and tore the ring apart.
Yes.
I was cool with that.
Yeah, very strong start. Number two I have is their handling of WCW talent during and after the invasion.
The invasion was a huge mishandling. They had all this change, all this opportunity for excitement, and all this new talent on their hands, and they misused and mishandled all of them. With a very few exceptions, like Booker T made it out of that alive, and some people had some strong careers after it, but for the most part, they blew their wad, so to speak, in the course of a summer that should have been played out over the course of a year or so. I think everyone looks back on the invasion angle as a huge blunder.
I would have liked to have seen them find some way to keep the WCW television going a little longer.
Like, I feel like SmackDown should have been Nitro around that time. And that could have led to a little more excitement personally. But I guess I don't know the difference between a mistake and a mishandling, but it was mishandled for sure.
Yes. My next one is the part-time workers. The guys that go on to do their own thing and get to come back to that nice cushy spot at the top.
Well, okay, so I'm assuming you're talking about guys like Lesnar, guys like Taker,
Rock, Batista.
Okay. They're a necessary evil, I feel like. I feel like with someone like Brock, who I'll use as an example, it's either we get him in these small doses or we don't get him at all. So if that's the case, then yes, I would rather have them in small doses than nothing at all. Obviously, the main goal is to have them around for as much time as you can. Now, where the mistakes can happen is if you give someone like this the belt, the title, and they're not around to make the belt visible, That's not Brock's mistake. That was a booking mistake. But I don't think giving Brock the title when he had it was a mistake. You did, didn't you?
I just wanted to see I wanted the title to be a little more visible when he had it. I understand what they were doing with him. I guess I was leaning more towards The Rock, who can be gone for years and then come back to a title shot.
Again, he was probably someone who didn't need to have the belt when he had it recently.
Yeah.
But still, he brought together some good business, I thought, for those WrestleManias he headlined with Cena. So, I just call it a necessary evil.
Okay. And kind of leading into
misunderstood.
That, yes. Kind of leading into that, CM Punk leaving, that being one of the reasons. How do you feel about that circumstance?
I think CM Punk made a huge mistake leaving, personally. I don't think the WWE mishandled it. I mean, you maybe could have given him a little more, but he's a guy who... I find him to be super annoying since he's left WWE. I was a huge fan of his when he was in the company. He had great matches, obviously cut amazing promos, among the best in the business, but he's a whiny little baby since he left. And he's the kind of guy where if he asked WWE for something and he would get it, he would keep asking. It would never be enough. If you give CM Punk a cookie, he's going to want a glass of milk, for people who know that book.
Yes.
And I don't think the WWE mishandled that. It's unfortunate that they couldn't come to terms, but I think that's more a character flaw on Punk than of the company, in my own opinion.
Okay.
Your thoughts there?
I kind of agree. I'm still a fan of him. I'm a fan of UFC, and I like following how... I'm waiting for him to have his first fight to see where that goes. I kind of hope everything he said wasn't true, and we'll never know the truth behind all of that.
You mean on that podcast?
Yeah. And I doubt 100% of it's true. I doubt 50% of it's true, or it may be his truth. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just sour on him since he left. He never handled himself like an adult, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And like if you want to do right by your fans want to see you wrestle, dude. Like that's what we want.
Yes.
So yeah, I've gone sour on him.
Okay. Next, I have wrestlers' deaths. Owen Hart, Chris Benoit. I mean, it's a vast array of different handlings, but I didn't know how you felt about how they handled wrestlers' deaths.
For the most part, I feel like they're in some tight spots. Like Owen was the first major one. He was an active star, and he died in such a tragic way. The other people that you mentioned... even guys like Eddie Guerrero played some sort of hand in their demise. Eddie didn't kill himself, so to speak. The way he treated his body over the years probably did. Benoit allegedly did do it to himself, as a lot of the guys do. Owen died in a tragic situation, so he got a special circumstance. A Raw that was dedicated to him. That was what it was. It was a tragic accident. They handled it the way that they have. They've always kept his name in high regard. It's never disparaged. I feel like Benoit is such a touchy subject, and I get that. I feel like erasing history is just dumb.
Yeah.
So while I get not putting him in the Hall of Fame, I don't need him deleted, and I know he's on the network, and I'm happy to see that, and he's on some DVDs now. I guess there was a period where they just had to abstain from him, and I get that. But now it's time to... Boy, I don't even know about that one, Steve.
Yeah.
I think
that's a hard topic.
On the norm, I think they do an okay job.
Yeah. All right.
Your thoughts?
I mean, I agree. With the Benoit, they had that whole tribute show that aired, and then the truth came out. And
they jumped the gun on that, so that was mishandled.
Yes.
But how do you have one of your major stars pass away and not acknowledge it on TV?
Definitely.
I mean, I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah, that's definitely a tricky one. One we can touch on real fast. How do you feel like they handle their current event characters? And I'm talking about Sergeant Slaughter in the 90s during Desert Storm, and Muhammad Hassan, and even most recently Zeb Coulter with the Border and the anti-Mexican. I mean, he's not anti-Mexican now, but when he was with Jack Swagger a year or so ago.
Okay. They do a pretty good job of keeping those guys in the limelight. They realize that the current event topics can be short-lived. Like Sergeant Slaughter is obviously a much better example than Muhammad Hassan is, who never really, I don't want to say lived up to his potential, but didn't really have longevity written all over it, in my opinion. Sergeant Slaughter felt more tasteful than Muhammad Hassan. Muhammad Hassan was a character who was created in the light of America's biggest tragedy.
Yes.
And that's different than when we go to war, I feel like. So, yeah, I would say with those, Slaughter was probably handled better than Muhammad Hassan was. And I guess, to be honest, I don't consider Zeb Coulter in that group. I feel like that heel character could exist at any point.
Okay.
And he doesn't qualify in that category.
Okay.
So, you want to do one more? You want to close out on one more?
Okay.
And then we can save the next one for maybe next week?
Okay.
Next half, I should say.
I'll go out on a big one for you. We'll do Bret Hart and the Montreal Screwjob and him leaving WWE.
Okay, well, what specifically are you asking about? What led up to the Screwjob?
How WWE's handling of him leaving. And then stripping him of the title, him being unaware.
I have, obviously, Bret Hart is my favorite wrestler. Shawn Michaels is my third favorite wrestler. This is my topic. And a lot of people disagree with me. And it's not because I'm a Bret Hart mark, but I do feel that Vince screwed Bret. And this was all Vince's fault, and I'll explain why. This could have been a mistake, but what people often don't mention in the same breath as the screw job is that Vince gave Bret creative control. Yeah. Not many people in WWE had that. I believe he was probably the only one at the time.
Oh, yeah.
So what that means is he's in charge of his on-air character. That's a silly thing to give someone as a booker. Yeah. And that's what spelled the demise for WCW, was too many people having that clause in their contract. But you gave it to Bret. So Bret was legally obligated to say, no, I don't want to do this. Yeah. And he chose that. And Bret was willing to do business in other different ways. He wasn't willing to lose to Shawn in Montreal. He was willing to lose to other people. That could have happened. You know, to me, it's like you had a handful of guys you could have dropped the belt to. Sure. He would have done it a different night. The next night on Raw, he was willing to do it. There were avenues that Vince didn't want to take but could have. So it's, in my opinion, the mistake could have been made months earlier when he gave Bret creative control, but I do feel that Vince screwed Bret. Okay,
so you being Vince McMahon, do you take the gamble and keep the belt on Bret and hope that he doesn't leave with it?
I wouldn't have given Bret creative control.
Okay.
So I wouldn't have gotten to that situation. Right. Let's say I gave Bret creative control. I wouldn't have given him the belt. Yeah. Third thing, let's just say I'm in this position. Now it's Survivor Series morning. I'm waiting. I'm either giving him an opponent he can drop the belt to, even if it's his brother Owen. Yeah. I'm giving him a different opponent, and I'm getting the belt off him either the next night or to someone else. That's what I'm doing.
Okay.
So, what about you?
I mean, I agree with that. I mean, that again, the sticky situation, him having creative control. I think as Vince, I don't know that I can trust him not to walk with the recent, Medusa dropping the women's title in the trash. I don't want another hand dealt like that to me from WCW. So I probably hit the trigger a little fast, and I pull the screw job.
You pull the screw job, really?
Do.
Okay.
It's not fair. I know it's not right, but it's business.
You couldn't find someone else to put the title on for a little while? Someone he's willing to work with?
I don't know. I mean, if Shawn's my guy, I mean, maybe you could have a transitional champion for 24 hours, but if Shawn's my guy and this is the road we're going...
I mean, less than a year later, you gave Kane the belt for one night. You know, I mean, it's like there's a whole lot of examples of times where they do that.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And this was one of those times for me. Yep. Plus, Bret didn't have a track record of really hurting Vince, and he was a loyal worker. But this one, True. I mean, we could spend a whole episode on the screw job. Save the rest of your list.
Okay.
It could be a slow news week next week.
All right.
We'll talk about it again. This was Mistakes, Mishandled, and Misunderstood with your friends, The Rob, and, of course, Steve.
And that's Best for Business.